I've never liked the ocean at night. Something about the endless black water makes me feel exposed, like anything could be watching, and I never know. But my cousin Jamie, she loved it. Always said the beach was her favorite place to think, especially after dark when the world went quiet. So, when she invited me to spend a weekend with her at her friend's beach house in Driftwood Bay, I wasn't too excited. Still, I said yes. I hadn't seen her in a while, and besides, it was only 2 nights. Driftwood Bay isn't one of those popular, well-lit beach towns. It's more like a forgotten stretch of shore somewhere in North Carolina, with crooked docks, old shingled houses, and roads that turn to gravel faster than you realize. The house we stayed in looked like it had once been beautiful big wraparound porch. 2 stories, weathered teal shutters, but now it seemed tired. The kind of tired that's lived through hurricanes and long winters thought it belonged to Jamie's friend Cassie's family, but Cassie wasn't with us. Jamie had gotten the keys for the weekend because she said Cassie was visiting her grandparents or something. I didn't ask for details, Dot. We arrived just after sunset. The house smelled like brine and old wood, and it creaked like it was holding its breath. Jamie tossed her bag down and immediately opened all the windows to let the sea in, as she called it. I stayed quiet. There was something off about the place, something I couldn't name, but I chalked it up to my nerves. Big old house, empty town, salty wind. It was a mood. Dot. We drank a little that night. Played music on Jamie's Bluetooth speaker and danced barefoot in the sand like we were still kids. I'll admit I loosened up. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad. After all, Dot, but then the first door slammed, Dot. It was close to 1 a.m. We were upstairs in the guest room watching some dumb movie on Jamie's laptop when we heard it. A single thud from downstairs, loud and sharp. We both froze. I looked at Jamie, and she looked at me. Wind, she said. It's an old house. That explanation held for maybe 5 minutes until we heard it again. A different door this time. Not a slam exactly. More like ... someone trying to handle. Soft, cautious. Then another. And another. We crept down the stairs together. I gripped the banister like it would protect me from whatever was making those sounds. The front door was still locked. The back door, too. Nothing had blown open. The windows? All shut. Every room on the ground floor was empty, but then we noticed it. One door near the rear hallway, a narrow, warped one I hadn't noticed before, was locked. Not locked like someone secured it from the outside. Locked like something inside was keeping it that way. Jamie tried the handle and frowned. I thought this was just a closet. You sure? I asked. No, she admitted. I've only been here once. That was weird enough. But we left it. Decided to go back to bed. Told ourselves again it was the wind. The house settling. Anything but what we felt in our guts. But around 3 a.m., I woke up needing water. The air was humid, and I was sweating. I tiptoed downstairs, not bothering to turn on the lights. When I passed the locked door, I stopped. I wish I hadn't. There was a scratching sound. Not loud, but not subtle either. Like fingernails against wood. Deliberate, measured, slow. I held my breath. Then it stopped. And then a whisper. I'm not sure I can explain it. It wasn't like a person whispering through a wall. It was like the sound crawled into my ear like it was for me and me alone. A low voice. 2 words. Still here. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. Just stood there frozen until the whisper faded. When I finally made it back upstairs, Jamie was awake. She looked at me and said, "You heard it too, didn't you?" I nodded. We didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, we tried to laugh it off. Sad we were overtired. Said the whisper was the wind through a vent. Jamie went for a swim. I stayed back, made coffee, and stared at the locked door like it might blink. That's when I noticed the marks. Scratches, tiny ones, along the bottom of the door. But they weren't random. They were words, etched into the wood by something. Small and sharp. I had to crouch down to read them. They said, "Let me out," over and over and over again. I backed away. When Jamie returned, I showed her. She turned pale, said we needed to go, that it wasn't our house, that we weren't supposed to be there. We packed fast. But before we left, Jamie stopped. She stared at the door. I could see her jaw clenching. I have to know, she said. Went to the kitchen and returned with a long metal skewer from the drawer. She jammed it into the old keyhole and twisted. The metal bent and scraped, and then click. The door swung open with a groan dot. It was a staircase going down. A basement. One that hadn't been mentioned. One not visible from outside. The air that rose up was wet and rank. Jamie started to step down, but I grabbed her arm. Please don't. We both stared into the dark for a long time. But we didn't go in. We closed the door, locked it again, and left. Weeks later, Jamie tried asking Cassie about it. Cassie got weird. Said there wasn't a basement. Said we must have been dreaming. But here's the thing. A few months later, I saw that house on the news. A family had bought it. They were renovating. They found something in the basement. A child-sized. Cot chains on the wall. And writing. All over the brick. The same words we'd seen before. Let me out. The beach house belonged to my boss. That already sounds like the beginning of a bad idea. I know. But he offered it to me and my girlfriend as a getaway. Thank you for finishing a brutal quarter of work without burning out. It was off season. Late September. So the house was empty, the town was quiet, and the rate was basically free. All I had to do was lock up after the weekend and toss the keys in a Dropbox near the property management office. We arrived Friday afternoon. The place was beautiful, modern, clean, perched right on a dune facing the ocean. All glass and blonde. Wood, kind of sterile, honestly. Not a lot of personality. But the view was spectacular. Just waves and more waves, all the way to the horizon. It felt like we were completely alone, which, looking back, is probably why everything got so weird. The first night was peaceful. We drank wine, cooked dinner together, and watched the tide come in under a blanket. The wind was a little strong, but that's the ocean. Nothing out of the ordinary until 2:30 a.m. I remember the time, exactly because I looked at my phone when I heard it knock. 3 short taps on the sliding glass door that led to the patio. The door faced the water. No porch, no steps, just the dune and the beach beyond. My girlfriend stirred and whispered, "Did you hear that?" I nodded, got out of bed, walked to the glass door in the dark. The moon was behind clouds, but there was enough light to see the sand. Nothing. No footprints. No movement. Just wind and sea. I chalked it up to branches or debris. Maybe a bird. We went back to sleep. The next night. It happened again. Same time. Same door. 3 knocks. Only this time, I saw her. A girl. Maybe 20-something. Pale. Drenched. Standing barefoot in the sand with her head tilted. Hair covering most of her face. She didn't say anything. Just stood there for a second, then knocked again. 3 slow. Deliberate taps. I didn't open the door. I didn't move. She turned and walked back toward the beach, vanishing into the dark like she'd melted into. I must have stood there for 5 full minutes before going back to bed. I didn't even wake my girlfriend. I didn't know how to explain it without sounding insane. I convinced myself she was a lost camper. Maybe drunk. Maybe confused. It was weird, but not supernatural. Not yet. The 3rd night changed that. We'd spent the day out hiking a trail nearby. Got home around 7 p.m. It was our last night, and we were planning to pack up early and leave by dawn. I didn't tell my girlfriend about the girl. Still convinced it wasn't worth freaking her out over. We ate, showered, watched a movie, and climbed into bed around 11 at 2:13 a.m. Like clockwork, she knocked again. But this time, it wasn't 3 knocks. It was 5 louder. Urgent. I sat up. My chest tight. My girlfriend was awake instantly. Is someone here? I nodded. Don't. Move. I crept out of bed again and stepped to the glass door. She was closer this time. Her face was more visible. Her eyes wide, sunken, and fixed on the house. On me. She didn't blink. Didn't speak. She just knocked again. 5 times. I whispered, "Do you need help?" She raised her hand again, but this time pointed not at me, but past me, toward the interior hallway of the house. I turned and followed her gaze. And that's when I saw it. A wet footprint dot inside dot near the kitchen. The door had never been opened, but there it was. One single soaked bare footprint, leading away from the door and deeper into the house. I spun around, and the girl outside was gone. I woke my girlfriend and told her everything. We searched the house, every room, every closet. Nothing. She was terrified. I was trying to be logical, but I couldn't explain it, Dot. So we did the only thing that made sense. We left. At 3 a.m., we packed our bags, got in the car, and drove inland until sunrise. Slept in a motel with the lights on. Here's where it gets worse. When I texted my boss the next day and thanked him for letting us use the house, he replied, "Strange. You left the place spotless, but there was sand all over the upstairs bedroom." I told him we didn't go upstairs. We only stayed in the main floor bedroom. He didn't respond for an hour. When he did, he sent a photo. It was a picture of the upstairs hallway. 3 wet footprints, bare, leading from the top of the staircase to the master bedroom. No one had been up there. Not anyone. But whoever she was, she had. I never wanted to own a beach house. It was my wife's dream. She grew up spending summers on the Outer Banks and always talked about having a place of our own someday. So when her aunt passed and left her a cottage in a tiny coastal town called Crookshoals, she saw this fate. I just saw dollar signs. It was old, worn down, and surrounded by trees with limbs that scraped the windows at night, but she loved it. And I loved her. So we started fixing it up. The town was nearly empty during the colder months. Most of the homes were seasonal rentals or owned by retirees who barely left their porches. We'd drive down from Raleigh on the weekends to paint, repair, and refurnish the place one room at a time. The strange part started in February. We'd been staying there for about a month. Mostly on weekends, when my wife suggested we use the guest bedroom on the second floor. The master was downstairs, but the upstairs room had a better view of the sea and was closer to the fireplace. I agreed. The first night we slept there. Something woke me up around 3:40 a.m. It was the sound of the window unlatching. Not the creak of the wood or the rattle of wind, but the exact metal click of a latch sliding open. I sat up instantly. The curtains were still, but I swore the air in the room had changed colder, heavier. My wife was asleep beside me. I stepped toward the window and gently pulled the curtain aside. It was open just an inch. Just enough to suggest it had been opened on purpose. I latched it again and went back to bed, telling myself it hadn't been locked properly. Old window frames, sea air, the usual. But I didn't sleep well after that. The next night it happened again. Same time. I was more prepared. When I heard the click, I sat up immediately, watching the window from bed. This time, the curtain swayed slightly, even though the other one didn't move at all. Like something had brushed past it. Again. The window was unlatched by the time I reached it. Open just enough to make a sound. Open just enough to suggest intent. I latched it. I checked the others in the house. All secure. By the third night, I decided not to sleep. I sat in the armchair by the guest room closet, facing the window, pretending to read. I drank coffee, waited, kept checking the clock. 3:38, 3:39. 3:40. I froze. The sound was the same metal on metal, deliberate. But this time, I didn't get up. I just watched. The window inched open. But nothing came through. Not immediately. It took maybe a full minute. But then a hand, pale, long fingers. The skin looked waterlogged, almost gray. It reached through the narrow opening, pressed against the inside frame, and slowly pulled back, like it was just checking. I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. I felt like a child hiding under the covers, but I watched the hand disappear. The window stayed open. The next morning, I told my wife we had to stop staying in that room. She laughed it off, said I was dreaming. I was probably overtired from all the work we'd been doing, but I knew what I'd seen. I stopped sleeping entirely on weekends we stayed there. Kept watch every night, Doc. Sometimes nothing happened. But every few nights, always. Around 3:40 a.m., that window would open. Always the same exact amount. Always with that same sound. It wasn't until early March that my wife finally believed me, Dot. She woke up screaming. I bolted upright and found her pointing at the window. She said she'd someone standing outside, watching us. But here's the thing, that room is on the second floor. There's no balcony. No ladder. No ledge, Dot, nothing, Dot. Just empty air and a small sloped roof. Beneath it, Dot, we called the police. They searched the property. Found no footprints. Nothing unusual, except one of the officers called me aside before he left and asked a strange question. Did you two know the previous owner? Not really, I said. It belonged to my wife's aunt. We visited. Few times, but we weren't close. The officer nodded. Just curious. Locals say she never went upstairs. Not once in the last 10 years she lived here. I asked why. He shrugged. Said she heard knocking from that window at night. Claimed someone kept trying to get in. I didn't respond. Didn't sleep that night either. We sold the house in April. Didn't tell the buyers anything. But sometimes, when I wake up at 3:40 in the morning for no reason, I think about that hand. That slow, patient click of the latch. And I wonder if someone else is hearing it now.